Yo, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to the locker room. We are back on a beautiful Thursday evening. I just put up my Christmas lights. They're all set up because it's Christmas time. I don't care what you guys say. I don't care what anyone says. It is Christmas time after November 1st. So Christmas and Thanksgiving are celebrated together. So it's Christmas time. It's also football season. That's why we're here as always. So today it's just going to be me because, Cody's on vacation. So good for Cody. Good for you, Cody. He's out on vacation, so he will not be joining me today. But we do have a different episode for you today. But before we get into that episode, we just want to apologize for the technical difficulties for last episode, as it did come out a week late. We recorded it a week prior than the release date was supposed to come out. So it was supposed to come out that Friday, but it had to be pushed back to next Thursday, I believe it was, just because we had some technical difficulties getting that out for you. But it got out. Happy if you guys got to see that. So, without further ado, what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you the theme of this episode, and it's not a very good one, honestly. It's disappointment. That's right. This week, we'll be going over the 5 most disappointing teams in my mind. I'm going to be giving my opinion on how they can fix those teams. Can already imagine what team is going to be in here. Yeah, you guys know what team is going to be in here because, oh boy. So, we have a lot of teams that really aren't doing that well, but I picked out my 5, my way of my personal opinion on how they can get back on track. And that may involve a 3-year rebuild, and we'll see. It may involve a quick switcheroo, something new, something else, tiny things, big things. We'll find out. But again, I'm not an NFL GM. I don't know how this stuff works. This is just my opinion on what I see on the field, on the tape. So don't come at me. But before we get into that, we're going to go into some NFL news this week, as very, very bad news is Josh Allen goes down he didn't go down. He got back up, but could keep him out of this week's game, potentially a lot of games. So Josh Allen hurts his elbow. It is called a UCL sprain, has not been practicing at all. So not a good sight for the Buffalo Bills, as they did just lose to the Jets, and that just proves that the Jets are contenders in this league and contenders for that division. So if the Bills want to get that number 1 seed, if they want to even win the division, they're going to need Josh Allen. So who knows how long Josh Allen will be out, but this will definitely be one of the biggest injuries of the year so far, as he is the best quarterback in the NFL in my eyes. So will Case Keenum be able to step up if Josh Allen goes down? I mean, I feel he'll be serviceable. I don't think he'll be Josh Allen level standards, but I think he'll be serviceable and be able to maybe nudge out a few wins there to possibly get him in that division win. But I think they'll for sure be in the playoffs. It's just a matter of how long Josh Allen's out. So that's really foggy there, as the Bills are not saying much. Moving on to the next topic, it is Frank Wright fired. This is the last big topic of today. Frank Wright fired Jeff Saturday, coming in as the interim head coach. I mean, already been a rough patch for the Colts this far, having to bench their quarterback, now get rid of their head coach, and bringing in Jeff Saturday. Seems like a great motivator. I'm excited to see what he can do as a coach, although I do not have much faith in him, as his only prior head coaching experience is for a high school team, and he went 3-7 at the high school level of football. So not too confident in the Colts right now. Not too sure where they're going at quarterback. Their coach is in shambles right now. So, and their offensive line. You know what? I'm going to stop talking about the Colts because, spoiler, we'll get to them later. So, Frank Wright is fired. So now we can finally get into our the disappointments. And might as well just start with the Colts, as I was already talking about them. As we said, Frank Wright fired. Don't know what they're doing with their quarterback situation. So, my personal opinion on what they should do. They need to figure out what's going on at QB. Because Sam Ehlinger has not looked the greatest. Sure, he's a young quarterback, but as well as Matt Ryan has not looked good at all. So they need to figure out what they want to do with the quarterback position. Is that draft? In my opinion, I don't think any of these guys on the roster are their future. I think they take a quarterback in the first round in this draft. I mean, you're already proven that you're not a contender this year. I mean, sure, you're 3-5, I believe, but still, you're not really a contender, as it doesn't look like you're going to win much more games. So you take a quarterback early, whether that's Bryce Young, Hendon Hooker, if you can get one of those guys, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, any of those guys, if you can get any of them, even though I don't agree that all of them are great, but, if you can get one of those guys, Try and do that. Next, address the offensive line. This was one of the best offensive lines in football a couple of years ago, even last year. It has gone to shambles, giving them 9 sacks last year. Don't know what's going on. Maybe you add another piece in the third round to boost up that offensive line. And then in the second round, I would really like them to take, or they need to address another wide receiver 2 spot. Not necessarily in the second round of the draft, not even in the draft. It can be in the offseason, and signing a free agent, anything like that, even for the offensive line, just addressing it in one of those few spots is a big key that they would need to do to take the next step. Because I don't think this needs a complete rebuild. I feel like you need a couple more pieces on offense and an offensive-minded coach like Frank Wright was, and you could be a very solid football team and get to the playoffs. So with the Colts, address those few things, and I think they'll be pretty solid. Now moving on to the Denver Broncos oh boy. The big question here is Russell Wilson the issue? Because if you're the Broncos, you cannot give up on Russ this year, not even next year, because you give up a buttload of picks and a buttload of players for him, and a buttload of your salary cap is being paid towards Russ to play at this level that is quite pathetic. I mean, is Russell Wilson the problem here? I mean, there's no other answer but to believe so, because you look at the defense. The defense is top 5 defense in football. They're not giving up much points. They're keeping them in games. And then every time it's coming down to them being able to score. And Russ just not on the same page with his receivers, not on the same page with Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, they do not look, none of them, on the same page at all. Their offensive line is pretty weak. So if I were the Broncos, here's what I would do. You have to keep Russ. There's no option. You traded all this stuff for him. You have to keep Russ. He stays your quarterback. But does he stay the quarterback? You keep him as your quarterback, but does he stay the quarterback? We'll get to that in a minute. So you figure out how you can work with Russ. And let's say we get halfway down the year, let's say the end of the year, and even in the offseason, things still aren't clicking with Russ at all. I still don't think you draft a quarterback in the first round. I really don't. It's not worth the pick. In the first round, you want to give things that can help Russ. You want to build that up, that O-line, to give him time, allow him to make his reads, allow him to make throws. That's what Russ is good at doing. And then you want to give him another weapon. Jerry Jeudy's been underwhelming. Courtland Sutton has been his biggest target this year, but overall has not done much. That's because of Russ. If you can get another dynamic player in that offense, I do really think that Russ will be able to do better because it will open up the offense a lot more. So there you go. Get another weapon for Russ, either in the draft or in the free agency. Round 2, or anywhere, as I just said. Offensive line and free agency, offensive line in the draft. Any of that works. And then here is where I address the Russ problem. Third to fourth-ish round and later, I think you might look at a quarterback here. I think you look at a quarterback if you're the Broncos in this part of the draft, simply because if Russ doesn't perform, if Russ is not looking good, you still have a project behind him that you can work with. Don't just take a quarterback. Take a quarterback that you know is your guy, or not necessarily your guy, but take a quarterback that you know, that you like his traits, that you can work with him. If you're Nathaniel Hackett, you can work with him. You can build him up. And if Russ starts to slump halfway through the year next year, then maybe you give him a shot. Because let's face it, if you cannot continue with this if Russ continues to perform like this, they will have no option but to bench him at least. So have that guy ready to get a shot and get a shot at Russ to give Russ some competition and more importantly, maybe address the problem with Russell Wilson. So that is my ideal scenario for the Broncos, in my opinion. Now moving on to a very, very interesting question here is, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, sure, they just got to win. But is Tom Brady the problem? Is he the problem? We don't know, because he gave him a game-winning drive yesterday. But this offense is not clicking. Their defense is playing at a very high level. I will give them props for that. But overall, their offense has not been good. The rushing attack of Leonard Fournette has been god-awful. Even Rachaad White, I'd like to see him get more snaps. I just traded for him in fantasy. But if he can get more snaps, that will be good. I mean, rumors he's taking over the backfield. So I do like that step that offense is taking, giving Leonard Fournette a push. And then the receivers, obviously, you got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Russell Gage there. There's no excuse on not to be scoring points at all. At all. So is Tom Brady the problem? He is on the last year of his contract, I do believe. So if Tom Brady decides to leave, or even if Tom Brady wants to resign, he is old. Sure, he's Tom Brady, but I don't think you resign him. You let him go. You either find a veteran, solid quarterback in free agency, or I say it's all right to use your first round pick. I really like Hendon Hooker. If you can trade up for the draft and get Hendon Hooker, or even late in the round, I mean, you guys are going to kill me for saying this, but Anthony Richardson. If he commits to the draft and goes third to fourth round, even though I don't think he will commit to the draft, you guys are going to think he's bad. But what you guys got to understand is he is a big quarterback who can run. NFL coaches can find ways to not let them take risk, be a manageable passer, be a decent passer, and use their legs to extend plays and, more importantly, rush for yards. That is what the NFL is turning to. Look at Josh Allen. Look at Lamar Jackson. Look at Kyler. Look at Patrick Mahomes. All these guys are able to use their legs, and Anthony Richardson definitely has that ability. So Anthony Richardson might be an option there. And overall, you need to fire Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is not an NFL coach. You need a offensive-minded coach on this team because the defense is fine. You find a defensive coordinator who's manageable. They will work with this defense. They'll be fine. And then offensively, you need an offensive-minded coach that will develop a quarterback that's on a quarterback side that can work with the quarterback, and then you'll have a very solid team over there in Tampa. So 2 teams left now. One of them you already know, so I'm going to save that one for last. So right now we're going to go to Cody's favorite team. Too bad he's not here to talk about this, but the Green Bay Packers. Very, very rough start for them. I mean, you thought it was a rough start, and then they go out and lose to the Lions. So, I mean, it is a very, very, very rough start for the Packers. As my number one thing, I mean, sure, this guy has led them to a lot of places. 3-13 records for like 4 years in a row. 4 years in a row, this guy has led them to places. But you got to say goodbye to him. I'm sorry, guys. Now that I think about this, you guys are probably thinking I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers. I'm not. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur needs to go. That's the bottom line. I think Rodgers has made Matt LaFleur look good, and that is why they've had so much success. But, I mean, Matt LaFleur showing his interest, showing that it's Rodgers, showing his play calling, it's not good. So, in my opinion, I really think that they need to move on from Matt LaFleur. Now, there's 2 options that the Packers can go in this route. They can either go complete rebuild, or they can just dump at Matt LaFleur and get some pieces in free agency. So, I'll start with my first route. That first route is going to be getting rid of Rodgers. This is the complete rebuild route. So, you basically, what's going to happen? You trade Rodgers. If Rodgers still wants to play. So, you trade Rodgers, you get picks. You get picks you can use in the draft. You fire your GM, hire a new GM who's willing to rebuild this place. Not necessarily go take a quarterback the first round, but if you have to, you'll get 2 first-round picks for Rodgers, plus you'll have 3 first-round. It's 3 first-round picks in the draft. Your draft pick might not be that good. You go ahead, you take a quarterback. You go ahead, you take an offensive lineman. You go ahead, you take a receiver. There's no damage done to that defense from a previous year ago, or from this year. No damage done to it. You rebuild the offense from ground up. You get a new quarterback. You get an offensive-minded head coach who's willing to work with a quarterback more, and then you get a receiver and an offensive lineman who can give the quarterback time. As the Packers do have a solid line, but it needs to be better. You get an offensive lineman to build them up, and then you'll give your rookie quarterback time to progress, time to make his reads, time to get comfortable to throw to his rookie receiver. That is my plan for the complete rebuild for the Packers. Then, moving on to just dump Matt LaFleur. That's all you got to do. You dump Matt LaFleur, you take either an offensive lineman or a receiver in the first round. Give Rodgers another weapons. Receiver class, hell of a talented receiver class this year, here in 2023. So, you're going to give Rodgers either offensive lineman or wide receiver. It doesn't matter which round you can flip-flop it. Receiver, first round, receiver, second round, any of that. Just get them, those two things as your first pick. Build up that offense. That defense is fine. You get a good offense with Rodgers, you'll be good. You'll be all right. That defense is manageable to win with. So that's my thoughts on the Packers and what they can do. Now, this one hurts. This one hurts, as I really did not think that the Raiders would be on this list if we started the season, but it is. So I'm going to give you guys a warning right now. It's about to get loud. Number one rule: fire Josh McDaniels. He is horrible, and he pissed me off even more today. Josh McDaniels cannot call a play. He doesn't look like the locker room likes him. He's not a motivator. And overall, he's not an NFL coach. He is a NFL offensive coordinator who can work with a single quarterback. He can work with a single player, maybe a few players. He is not a coach who can work with a bunch of people. He cannot manage a 53-man roster. He is an offensive coordinator through and through. And what really pissed me off today is you have Josh McDaniels. He basically, okay, I'll admit, Raiders playoff hopes are gone. We're 2-6. We're not making it. We're not winning out. We're not doing any of that. We've looked terrible. We're not making the playoffs. I know that. But Josh McDaniels today pretty much solidified that he is not going to lose his job simply because he probably told Mark Davis, we're not going to make it. Let's throw in the towel. Let's get a better draft pick. And a result, what's going to happen is, or what happened today, you put two of your best players on IR with Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller. Then what do? Blake Martinez retires. Something must be going on here. So they're probably throwing in the towel. Josh McDaniels tells Mark Davis that. They probably agree on it. And then Josh McDaniels, when we lose more games, he won't get fired because now we're in a quote-unquote rebuild phase. So then Josh McDaniels in the draft, he stays. And then we're going to draft a quarterback, which I'm not a fan of. And then we keep Derek, and that means Derek Carr's gone, which pisses off Devontae Adams because the only reason he came to Vegas was to play with Carr. And then that whole receiver room shaken up already with a bad defense. Josh McDaniels is ruining this franchise, but more importantly, Mark Davis is ruining this franchise. If we should have fired Josh McDaniels last week, but if, for God forbid, we lose to the Colts this week with leading Jeff Saturday as their head coach, he needs to be fired on the spot. On the spot. Enough with that rant. Here's what I would do if I was the Raiders. Fire Josh McDaniels, as I said. You do not replace Carr. You have him signed. He's a manageable quarterback you can win with. You hire another offensive-minded coach that can work with Carr, who is good with Carr, who's a coach. You can get an offensive guy like that. It's not McDaniels. Carr. You keep Carr simply because you don't want to piss off Adams. Adams came here to play with Carr. That's what he's going to do. He's going to play with Carr. They have a very, very good offense on this team on paper. They can execute it. And the draft, first round, and the freaking rest of the draft, you either go you go offensive lineman in the first or second round. The rest of the draft, you go defense. This defense is not looking good. You have Nate Hobbs, who is hurt, but he's overall looking good. Trayvon Merrick has taken a step down from last year. Anthony Avert has been terrible. We just lost Blake Martinez. You need to address his defense if you want to win football games next year. Address the defense in the draft. Keep Carr, keep Adams. Get an offensive line piece on the free agency or something. Do any of this to improve that defense, improve the offense a little bit. Fire Josh McDaniels is the number one thing. I swear to you, if we fire Josh McDaniels next year, we're a playoff team. I really believe that. So get rid of McDaniels. So that's my take on the Raiders. So after that rant, we're now going to go into our 2-minute drill. It was a bit of a shorter episode today, but that's how it's going to be because I know Cody's not here, not much to talk about. I can't bounce questions off of him. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to get into my weekly takes. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start it up. Let's do this. But before we do that, what we're going to do is go and talk about our records the past 2 weeks because me and Cody's have been still keeping track of that. So Cody's record, 42-48, and I am at 53-38. So I am winning the race so far. But who knows? Anything can change in the week. Cody did very well last week, going 8-4. So good on him. Now, here we go. Start off Atlanta, Carolina, which is kicking off right now, actually. So I'm going to be going with Carolina. They want that revenge on Atlanta from what happened how many weeks ago? 2 weeks ago on that Hail Mary and all those missed field goals. Carolina going to come out the win. Then move on to Seattle versus Tampa. Tampa coming off a win. I don't see them losing. Tom Brady off wins usually is very, very, very hot. So give me Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here over Geno Smith. Now moving on, Denver versus Tennessee. Denver, as we just talked about, very, very disappointing. Not looking good at all. Not looking good at all. The offense is bad, and the Tennessee defense is even better. So what we're going to do, we're going to take Tennessee here because that defense is going to outpower them, but it also depends on if Malik Willis is playing, but I still think that they can pull out a win even if Malik is playing. So, Cleveland, Miami. It's a tough one, but I'm going to go Miami. Jacoby Brissett, he's really going to try and prove something this week. I don't think it's going to be enough against his Miami defense, and that Miami offense is going to be cooking. Las Vegas versus Indy. I'm going to take the Raiders. I really don't like taking the Raiders, but Jesus, Lord, if we lose this week, Josh McDaniels better lose his job. Give me the Raiders. New Orleans versus Pittsburgh. TJ Watt, I don't know if he's been back, but I know TJ Watt's playing in this game. Last time TJ Watt was in the game, they almost beat the Bengals. They were very, very solid, so give me Pittsburgh over New Orleans. Detroit versus Chicago. Detroit coming off the big win against the Packers. Chicago coming off a close loss against Miami. Chicago, Justin Fields has looked great. He's really establishing the run game, even in the pass game. Give me Chicago. Minnesota versus Buffalo. Case Keenum might start. We don't know what's going on with Josh Allen, so I'm still going to go with Buffalo. I still think that Buffalo has a solid enough roster to support Case Keenum to where they can come away with a victory. So give me Buffalo against Minnesota. Then we have Houston versus New York. This would be a huge upset, but I'm not going to take it. I can't trust it. Houston has not looked good at all. They looked decent last week, but overall, not great. So give me New York. And then bang, bang, bang. Here we go. Jacksonville versus Kansas City. Give me Jacksonville. Upset of the week. I'm taking Jacksonville against KC. This is probably the riskiest take all year, but you know what? We're going to go for it. Give me Jacksonville over Pat Mahomes. Dallas versus Green Bay. Green Bay coming off a very, very bad loss. I think that they get the win against Dallas because Rodgers needs to prove himself, and more importantly, Matt LaFleur needs to prove himself to keep his job. So now going to move on to Arizona versus the LA Rams divisional matchup. Rams have looked bad. Cardinals have looked bad. I think the Cardinals have looked worse. Give me the Rams. And then final game of this week, or am I mistaken? This might not, well, I'll let you know. Final game so far of the week, we have the Los Angeles Chargers versus the San Francisco 49ers. This is a tough one, honestly, but I think I'm going to go with the 49ers. The Celtics. Chargers, not look that great so far, but I think that they can do it. I really do. I think that the 49ers can pull it off. So we're going to go with the 49ers here, and that will move on to Philadelphia versus Washington. And, I mean, give me the Eagles. They're going to continue that 9-0 record. They look great, and they better not lose because I love Jalen Hurts, and he's on my fantasy team. So that is who we're going to go with there. And that is going to wrap up the episode, guys. Bit of a shorter episode here, but Cody's not with me. I did want to keep it a little bit short, but gave you a different kind of episode today, a little bit of a downer episode and a rager episode, but who knows? Maybe you guys enjoy that. Maybe you guys, you like seeing me get pissed off. So let me know. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, and share to all these videos to all your friends to get our name out there, and follow our TikTok at TheLockerRoom Pod. So we have all our clips up there. So like, subscribe, do all that shenanigans, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.